Good evening. I'll call this regular business meeting of the Waco ISD Board of Trustees to order. All items discussed or voted upon this evening have been posted as required by state law. I extend a warm welcome to those of you present and to those of you watching online or on TV. The board's purpose is to set goals, listen to the reports of the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. We are not here to make management decisions or solve problems of individuals. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent and her staff. I ask that you turn your cell phones to silent if you haven't already, and we appreciate the time you've taken and the interest you've shown in Waco ISD. At this time, the board will receive input from patrons. Each person who addresses the board will have 3 minutes to speak on his or her issue. Because of the topic posting requirements of the Open Meetings Act, board members will not ask questions and will not answer any questions posed by the person speaking. No action can be taken on any issue presented during the patron comment section of the board meeting that's not already listed on the agenda, and patrons addressing the board will be notified by Mr. Bedania. Yep, he's got his timer ready there when they have approached the end of their allotted time to speak. Tonight I have one sign-up form, and that's for Hope Mustikim.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to talk about the agenda item regarding the contract with Transformation Waco. So just as a community member, social worker, parent in the district, want to voice my support for Transformation Waco and the hope that you all do the right thing and renew the contract, because I've seen them take a holistic approach to our children's needs. And although we're all in the middle of a pandemic still, they were handed a pretty impossible situation, especially with Indian Spring and Carver, right after a fire, right after the loss of a principal. And they're really trying to do the best they can, more social workers on campus, more support staff. So, and I've seen the performance, the reports and how they've improved, sometimes even beating state averages. And so I don't see any reason why we would vote not to extend the contract. So, yeah, I would just encourage everyone to make the right decision and leave agendas aside. Thank you.
Monica, is there anybody else who signed up to speak? Okay. At this time, just for the sake of expediency, yes. Ms. Cordaweg noticed that our new Waco ISD police officer, Ryan Mason, is here with his beautiful family, and we thought if he's ready and Chief's ready. Yeah? Yes, thank you. Sorry to do that without talking to you first, but we thought it might be best for the children's sake.
Absolutely. Yeah. So today we are going to welcome our new Waco ISD police officer, Ryan Mason. Officer Mason is a native of Mobile, Alabama. He's been married for 9 years to Natasha, and they have 2 girls, Raven 4 and Nevaeh 1. Officer Mason served the U.S. Army for a total of 8 years, from November 2011 to March 2020, as an infantryman and an imagery intelligence analyst. During his time in the Army, he deployed to Kandahar, Afghanistan, and Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, concluding his contract in March of 2020 with an honorable discharge. Officer Mason has completed the police academy at Navarro College in February 2021, and he has served as a patrol officer for Lacey Lakeview Police Department and joined the Waco ISD PD in April of 2022. His hobbies include family trips, hunting, fishing, weightlifting, visiting theme parks, and spending time with his family. So at this time, we'd like to welcome Officer Ryan Mason.
Would you like to introduce your family? Yes. 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 Would you like to introduce your family?
evening, everyone. To my right, some of you all left, my wife, Natasha Mason, my baby girl, Nevaeh, my oldest daughter, Raven Mason, and that is my nephew, Braden Webb.
Welcome to Waco.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're so glad that you're joining Waco ISD, and we are very excited with all of the skills and credentials that you bring. So thank you so much for choosing Waco ISD.
Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Mason.
All right, and then I am going to move up item 12, review and discuss report on board member continuing education credit, unless there's objection from anybody. Hearing none, so the legislature has continues to update the training requirements for school board members, and most recently made a change in the requirement that the current board president announce the continuing education for members of the board at the meeting before the election. So this is a required posting, and it is a required statement that needs to be read. School board service is not for the faint of heart, and especially not when it comes to the number of hours that trustees are required to complete. So at this time, I am announcing the name of each member who, at that member's anniversary of the election or appointment to the board, has completed the required continuing education, has exceeded the required continuing education, or is deficient in meeting the required continuing education. I'm also required to announce that completing the required continuing education is a basic obligation and expectation of any sitting board member under the State Board of Education rule. Myself, Jeremy Davis, Keith Guillory, and Emily Iazetti have completed and exceeded the required continuing education, and Stephanie Cordaweg and Jose Vidania have completed almost all of the required continuing education and have exceeded the required areas in most areas, but are deficient in meeting all of the required continuing education. But I know they're working on it. So, with that item, unless there are any other guests, Alice, that we should recognize before we go into closed session, the board will go into closed session at this time in accordance with Texas Government Code Sections 551-071 to consult with our attorney and 551-074 to discuss personnel matters. We will be reconvening, I hope, shortly. We have a lot of very special guests tonight, so we will not run over. Thank you. Welcome. The board will reconvene in open session. We have been in closed session where no action was taken. And at this time, I would like to ask everyone to pause for a moment as we take just a minute for prayer, contemplation, reflection, or meditation. Thank you. And now, Pledge of Allegiance. I think we have some special guests here tonight to help us lead the pledge.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Back.
You can get your certificates. And Valerie, you're first.
At this time, I'd like to invite you down.
I swear, my heart was beating so fast.
Oh.
So we're going to begin our special recognitions with our very special pledge leaders today. We have from Kendrick Elementary saying the pledge for us at our regular business meeting for the month of April, Miss Valerie Valdez and Iker Martinez from Kendrick Elementary. Thank you to Principal Isabel Lozano for being here tonight. Valerie is a fourth grader who loves math, reading, drawing, playing outside, and she's played soccer since she was 4 years old. When she grows up, she wants to be an artist. And I'd like to thank Valerie's parents, Erica and Juan Valdez, for being here tonight and sharing your wonderful daughter with us. And Iker is also in fourth grade, and he loves playing football at the park. He also plays soccer, and his favorite subject is math. When Iker grows up, he wants to become a mechanical engineer. And thank you to Iker's parents, Edith and Dayan Martinez, for being here and sharing your wonderful son with us. And next we have our Tennyson Middle School 2022 Texas Science and Engineering Fair award winners. Students in 6th grade through 12th grade compete in regional science and engineering fairs in Texas throughout the months of January, February, and March to advance to the state fair. The state fair includes 20 categories, including engineering, biological sciences, physical science, and participation in the Science and Engineering Fair is critical to developing a culture of inquiry in students at a stage when developing and learning to synthesize and analyze information. 4 students from the Atlas Academy at Tennyson Middle School placed in the top 4% of student scientists in Texas at the 2022 Science and Engineering Fair held at the Texas A&M March 25th and 26th. 22 of the 29 projects were selected to compete at the 2022 Central Texas Science and Engineering Fair, and students were awarded as follows. For Behavioral and Social Sciences, first place, Gabriela Guerra Sanchez. Second place, Graciela Guerrero. For Biomedical and Health Sciences, second place, Hadley Moore. Evelise Smith. And Rochelle Villa. Earth and Environmental Sciences, first place, Avion Anderson. And Yadira Salinas. Second place, Cassandra Salcedo. For Energy, Sustainable Materials and Design, third place, Tristan Perot. And Tyrion Jones. Honorable mention, Andrew Yano. Plant Sciences, third place, Emmanuel Perez. Robotics and Intelligent Machines, first place, Kevin Santos. Second place, Tamarcus Hicks. Third place, Matthew Everett. Bates Dyer. And James Nava. Translational Medical Science, honorable mention, Emmanuel Grajeda. Regional Water Prize, first place $100, Avion Anderson and Yadira Salinas. And nominee for Broadcast Masters Competition 2022, Gabriela Guerra Sanchez. Second place, Earth and Environmental Sciences, Cassandra Salcedo.
All right, here we go. Okay, all right, ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Do another one. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank y'all.
Congratulations. Next, we have our Dell Scholars. It takes more than financial support to reach college graduation, and Dell Scholars program was designed to provide a support system for challenges that many students face while pursuing a degree. Dell Scholars receive the following financial support: a $20,000 scholarship, personalized support for academic, financial, and emotional life challenges, a laptop computer, textbook credits, and access to teletherapy services to connect with students in professional counseling. And we are pleased to recognize the following university high school students who recently were named Dell Scholars: Elizabeth Sanchez, Karen Salazar, and Saul Rangel, who are not here with us tonight. Next, we have our Texas Incentive Allotment Designated Teachers. House Bill 3 established a Teacher Incentive Allotment, TIA, to recognize effective teachers on 3 different levels: master, exemplary, and recognized. These teacher designations generate additional teacher-focused allotment funding for districts to reward their top performers. Districts will receive additional funding between $3,000 and $32,000 per year for each designated teacher that they employ, and at least 90% of TIA funds must be used for teacher compensation on the campus where the designated teacher works. Waco ISD is proud to recognize 47 teachers who have earned a TIA designation from the Texas Education Agency. The following teachers received the master level designation: Brittany Bunton, Dean Highland Elementary; Nolan Garrett, Bells Hill Elementary; the following teachers received the exemplary level designation: Allison Davis, Lake Air Elementary; Jennifer Garza, Bells Hill Elementary; Margie Gillenwater, Crustville U Elementary; Iris Hernandez, Bells Hill Elementary; Shanna Jones, Waco High School. Christy Lopez, Bells Hill Elementary. Maria Martinez, Bells Hill Elementary. Lindsay Melancon, Bells Hill Elementary. Victoria Nava Cabrera, Provident Heights Elementary. Greg Aubrey, Dean Highland Elementary. Rosa Pryor, Dean Highland Elementary. Alina Rodriguez, Bells Hill Elementary. Raquel Sabito, Lake Arrow Montessori. Christine Sargalogos, West Avenue Elementary. Melanie Simons, Best Hill Elementary. Lisa Ward, South Waco Elementary. Fallon Warren, Lake Hare Montessori. Ronald Williams, Bells Hill Elementary. Angelette Leah Wright, West Avenue Elementary. Robin Seckman, Kendrick Elementary. The following teachers received the recognized level designation: Victoria Abuk, Lake Hare Montessori. Yolanda Anzures, Cedar Lake Ridge Elementary. Megan Barragon Taylor, Lake Air Montessori. Michelle Beam, Bells Hill Elementary. Darla Bertino, Dean Highland Elementary. Eunice Caballero, Bells Hill Elementary. April Cobb, Dean Highland Elementary. Sarah Curtis, Dean Highland Elementary. Callie Davis, Bells Hill Elementary. Sean DeWitt, Waco High School. Carmen Diaz Perez, West Avenue Elementary. Brent Fudge, Lake Air Montessori. Mariela Gutierrez, Cedar Ridge Elementary. Marianne Hardesty, Bells Hill Elementary. Jose Hernandez, Dean Highland Elementary. Jill Kulinek, Kendrick Elementary. Muriel Phillips, West Avenue Elementary. Cassandra Murillo, Dean Highland Elementary. Elizabeth Nalon, Parkdale Elementary. Elizabeth Reynoso, Bells Hill Elementary. Jessica Scott, Crestview Elementary. Dario Solis Nieves, Bells Hill Elementary. Raylan Spicer, Lake Hill Montessori. Ileana Torres Quintero, Bells Hill Elementary. Miranda Unger, Dean Highland Elementary. I also invite any of the principals here for these campuses to please stand and let us recognize you as well. Congratulations on this outstanding achievement. And last but not least, we have our Community Partner Award. Each month, Waco ISD recognizes a community partner making a difference for students with the Waco ISD Award Outstanding Community Partner. The recognition celebrates the theme for the 2021-2022 school year, We Are Waco ISD, and acknowledges that it's not just employees and students who make Waco ISD a community a great place to teach and learn. In April, the district is recognizing 7th and James Baptist Church. In January 2012, Waco ISD began a cooperative program with 7th and James Baptist Church to supply school clothing to students experiencing homelessness. The clothing program is coordinated through the Office of the Homeless Outreach Services at Waco ISD and is run by Dr. Ann Sims and church volunteers. 7th and James operates the program in a room on the second floor of the church. They assist with school shirts, pants, shorts, socks, belts, underclothing, coats, and shoes. Items are donated, purchased by the church, or by utilizing a grant that Waco ISD Homeless Outreach Services receives. The program is efficient. When Waco ISD families contact the homeless outreach staff to report a need of school clothing, a request is emailed to church staff, and within 24 hours, the request is filled. The clothes are packed and ready to be picked up by Waco ISD staff and delivered to the family immediately. So thank you so much for all your help. Thank you. That concludes our special recognitions for tonight.
All right, great crowd. Dr. Kincannon, Superintendent's report.
All right, well, good evening. A couple of longer items, so it may take me just a few minutes longer this evening. I would be celebrating. There's a lot of money attached to those TIA designations that you'll hear about later, but some of those teachers are getting some really nice bonuses, and they'll get them for up to 5 years. Well deserved, absolutely. So we'll talk about that more later on the agenda, but really excited for them. First, let me talk a little bit about the pre-kindergarten roundup. Last Saturday, our annual pre-K roundup Fun Fest was held at the Waco ISD Athletic Complex from 9 to 2. And I want to thank Gwen James, our Director of Early Childhood, and the approximately 55 employees, which included pre-K teachers and representatives from multiple departments, early childhood, parents as teachers, PEAMS, bilingual, ELL, health services, curriculum and instruction, and technology, who organized and ran the event. You see some pictures there. We also had 20 Baylor students volunteer to assist, and we had cars line up as early as 8:15 in the morning, and there were a total of 259 children who completed or started the registration process for the fall. I thought that was a really good number. It was a drive-through event for the registration portion, and then families were able to park and participate in fun activities and events such as seeing University High School cheer performances, hearing the Waco High School Jazz Band. There was a City of Waco Fire Department fire truck. Thank you, Lieutenant Guillory. We heard you provide a little help to make sure it got there. The Waco ISD food truck was there, Kona Ice, and then, of course, you see we had some special visitors. We had, I think there was a Batman. Yep, there's Batman, and Captain America, and plenty of games for the children. There was also community information booths that were provided from different groups such as Star Kids, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, Starry Counseling, Voice, Telehealth Services, Waco Family Medicine, Imagination Library of Waco, Methodist Children's Home, Family Outreach, and the Mayborn Museum. So special thanks to all of our staff who helped put this on last Saturday and helped get our kids registered. Really excited about that. Update on the budget development. You all heard an overview of the budget planning process at our last meeting on March 31st. And as you will recall, the district has lost 813 students since the pandemic began. And declined enrollment along with low attendance rates have resulted in a loss of state revenue. And you heard Ms. Davis say that we are projecting an approximate $11.4 million deficit in this year's budget. And that's before the application of the hold harmless provision by the state. With that adjustment, the deficit for the current year is projected to be $6.6 million, and revenue losses for next year are projected to be $4.4 million. So it's clear that we will need to make cuts for next year and then potentially again the following year. Our demographic projections show our enrollment staying in a narrow range, around 14,000 students for the next decade. And we can't solve this problem by drawing down the fund balance next year as a one-time approach, because this is going to be a long-term challenge. So at this point, we are planning on a $5 to $6 million cut for next year. And most of those cuts are going to be in personnel costs, as most of our general fund budget is used to pay for personnel. However, the good news is that we expect that we can accomplish most of those cuts through attrition, meaning that they would occur through resignations, retirements, and reassignments. So at next month's meeting, we will discuss specific information regarding recommended cuts, but I wanted to let you know that those cuts will start at the administration building, and I intend to cut at least $1 million in positions from district-level administration and other centralized services. Now, all of that to say, I do intend to make a recommendation for a raise for our employees for next school year. They deserve it. Making personnel cuts is likely not to get us to a balanced budget for next year, but it will increase our ability to provide raises for our employees, and I will be making a recommendation for salary increases for the next school year. I want that to be heard. I might say that again. Dr. Lopez, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, and his team have been working closely with TASB to analyze salary information, and we've been watching what's happening in our local area and across the state. Midway ISD recently approved a raise for their employees. Killeen ISD approved theirs this week. And I will make a recommendation for proposed raises for Waco ISD employees. We're going to do that a little bit earlier this year. We'll do that on May 19th at our regular meeting. Cutting $5 to $6 million will not be easy, but it's necessary for us to stay financially healthy. And it's also healthy for us to be able to afford raises that I will recommend for next year. So if you're getting the message. And finally, just let me reiterate that I am committed to raises for our employees, and I expect that nearly all of our cuts will happen through attrition. So I want to reassure everyone that we can do this. We're going to be okay. We're going to do this very calmly, and we're going to take care of our employees in the process. Any questions about that? All right. Partnership with Texas Tech for Master of Education in Applied Behavior Analysis. This is something we're really excited about. We've been in conversation with Texas Tech University Lubbock regarding a special partnership to provide an online Master's of Education degree in Applied Behavior Analysis. And up to 10 Waco ISD teachers who will be both special ed and regular ed teachers will be selected to participate in the program. Charlotte Davis, our Executive Director of Special Education, held an interest meeting with some teachers on April 14th. We had 4 teachers attend that to learn about the program, and we have had more interest since that time. And there's another meeting scheduled in May for several teachers who have expressed an interest in the program. So what is the ABA, or Applied Behavior Analysis? It's a therapy program using proven strategies to teach new skills and change behavior. So the goal is to increase positive behaviors and decrease negative or less desirable ones. So professionals who have this degree assist children and adults to improve communication skills, to be more independent, or to perform better at school or work. This is a 2-year online program which will begin in the fall. Teachers will take the ABA courses through Texas Tech. They will have a supervised practicum. And then once they complete the coursework and the practicum, then they're able to sit for a certification exam in one of the most sought-after credentials. These are really hard to find. People with these qualifications as board-certified behavior analysts. We're using ESSER funds to pay for the partnership. Similar to what we've done with reading recovery, this investment will provide us with some experts in behavior management in our district. So we're excited about that. And then finally, another program that is funded with our ESSER federal funds is our Summer Enrichment Program. You may have seen that advertised already on social media. We've partnered with multiple community organizations to provide district-sponsored participation in summer camp activities, and that's financial sponsorship. And some of the partners are the YMCA, the Girl Scouts, the Art Center of Waco, Baylor, World Hunger Relief, the Waco Civic Theater, among others. There's a lot of good information on the website about that. It's a wonderful opportunity for our students. I see Yolanda nodding her head. Thank you, Yolanda, for helping us with that. And I know Carmen Logan and David Hamilton have pitched in to get that up and running. That's something new we've never done before. And we're really happy to do it for our students. And appreciate our communications team who've been pushing the information out. I've seen some excitement from our parents about it. And it's just a really nice thing that we can do to make sure our kids have access to go to some great summer camps and get some experiences they might not ordinarily get. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Davis.
On the ABA, I think that's the Applied Behavioral Analysis.
Yes, sir.
Certification. I think that's a great program. I was just wondering, is there stipulations for our teachers to stay in the district once they get this?
Thank you for asking that question. Yes, our plan is to ask them to sign an agreement to stay at least 5 years with Waco ISD because this is a significant investment in them by the district. So we want them, once we get them certified, we want to keep them because they're in high demand. Yeah, great question.
We did a great job of telling us about some really exciting, positive things and put that kind of disappointing, troubling funding issue in the middle. Doesn't I can't say that it was that much better
It's a
to
hard
swallow,
thing.
but a big worry, and I appreciate you assuring our staff that there will be raises this year because we understand how important they are, and we're working, I know your team's working really hard to keep everybody and to attract the best to Waco ISD. So, thank you. All right, next on our agenda is the consent agenda. I've been asked to pull item 8J. Is there any other item on the consent agenda that any member of the board would like to be pulled? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of item 8J.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented with the exception of 8J.
Thank you, Ms. Cordawig. Second? Thank you, Mr. Vidania. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously.
I would just like to take a moment, Madam
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Kincaid, thank you so much for your administration for purchasing all of those Spanish readers for our students and ensuring that we have Spanish books in our library. I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thanks for acknowledging that.
Okay, item 8J, amendment to performance contract between Waco ISD and Transformation Waco.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to discuss this a little open. I looked at both performance agreements and also went into the community post our last meeting. I talked to Sharondale Neighborhood Association, the Hispanic Leadership Network, Carver Neighborhood Association, other community members at candidate forums, and each of the candidates that are actually running for Waco ISD School Board. And each of those community members heavily support Transformation Waco. And so I wanted to make a motion that we approve the performance contract and amendments and the language as presented by Dr. McDermott on March 31st, 2022.
All right, there's a motion to approve not the amendment that's in the packet, but an amendment that was in the board's packet last March.
Last month.
Last month, sorry. Not last month. It was last March. But last month. Yeah. Yeah.
A second.
A second from Mr. Davis. Is there any discussion?
I have questions, but I don't know. Would that be saved for a later time, or would that be?
That's okay.
Okay, great. Mr. DeBeer, could you help clarify a couple of questions that I had in regards to the timeline of the transformation zone, kind of when TEA told us that we had to take out the auto renew clause to kind of where we're at right now?
Absolutely. If you go back even further than that, this really starts with changes the legislature made in 2015. At that time, the legislature created a new penalty in the accountability system that said that the Commissioner of Education was required to close any school that failed to meet state accountability standards for 5 years or more in a row, or replace the school board overseeing that school with a board of managers. The following legislative session, the state created Senate Bill 1882 partnerships, as they're often referred to, a form of in-district charter partnerships, which is what Transformation Waco is, and that led to the existing performance contract that's in place today. That contract had an initial 3-year term, which ended on June 15th of 2021, and included an automatic renewal clause. For the purposes of both Waco ISD and Transformation Waco, we saw that automatic renewal clause as sufficient to demonstrate that Transformation Waco continued to operate the 5 campuses. In conversations with TEA over the summer, culminating in some emails in July, TEA said that it wasn't sufficient for maintaining the eligibility for benefits under Senate Bill 1882. So TEA makes a strong distinction between the partnership itself and its eligibility for additional funding under that law passed in 2017, and it's the funding piece that TEA was talking about. They said that the automatic renewal clause wasn't sufficient and they needed something from both boards to show that Transformation Waco continued to operate those schools. In response to that direction from TEA, in October, we proposed, and Transformation Waco's board tabled an initial amendment that would have secured benefits for the current school year. Then, over a period of time, Transformation Waco developed the proposed amendment that was presented last month in March, and that's kind of the really high level how we got from the creation of these partnerships in law to TEA saying the automatic renewal clause, which was something they initially requested when we were negotiating the original contract, was insufficient to the discussions that we've had last month and this month.
And so, okay, so House Bill 1842, what it does is put deadlines in terms of the parameters for accountability's sake. So 5 consecutive years. I'm saying this kind of, can you correct me if I'm incorrect, if I'm saying something incorrectly? But it gives schools 5 years if basically to turn a campus around. So if they're getting D and F ratings for 5 consecutive years, the board can be replaced with school managers or the school can be closed per TEA. So what is the timeline for that? So what year are we on? If this year, if the campuses don't make a C this year, in the transformation zone specifically, if they do not make a C, does this year count towards those consecutive, kind of 5 consecutive years, and which campuses would that affect?
So the short answer is yes. Unlike the previous 2 years, this year does count. The longer answer is that our campuses are in different places. So if you go back to the 2017-2018 school year, that's when that deadline was first going to kick in for those 5 campuses. We negotiated the performance contract initially with Prosper Waco and then assigned to Transformation Waco over the course of that school year. At the end of that school year in August of 2018, 4 of the 5 campuses met the accountability standards and reset the clock essentially on those interventions. The 5th campus, Brook Avenue, failed to meet state standards that year but met it the following year. So it's significant to remember that absent this partnership, those penalties would have kicked in with respect to Brook Avenue. The Commissioner of Education would have either ordered the campus closed or transferred most of this board's authority to a board of managers. Then the following year, the 2018-19 school year, the first school year in which Transformation Waco operated those campuses, that's the year Brook Avenue met state standards, reset their clock. However, J.H. Hines, G.W. Carver Middle received Fs in the state rating system that year, and so that, for those 2 campuses, is year 1. The other campuses that received Cs that year don't count on the clock towards that 5-year period. Then counting to 5 gets interesting because of the pandemic. So the following year, no STAR tests, no accountability ratings in 2020. The entire state receives not rated at both the campus level and the district level, doesn't count in that calculation. The year after that, Similar story, there's STAR tests that year, but still no accountability ratings assigned for any school or campus, doesn't count in that calculation. This year, the state will assign an A, B, C, or a not rated, but will release the accountability rating score. And so for campuses that would have translated into a D or an F, this is a year that counts, even though not rated is the same label that was applied previously in those years where it didn't count. Similarly, a campus receiving an A, B, or a C, if they were previously rated as an F in 2019, that rating would reset the clock. So depending on the campus that you're looking at, and in the 5 campuses that Transformation Waco operates, there's either 1 year essentially already on the clock or no years.
Thank you. And I think for the public, it's important to know that the transformation, I think I wanted to take this time, I don't know if Malcolm Duncan is here, Robin McDermott, Dr. McDermott, so sorry. Dr. McDermott, I wanted to, I remember the day very specifically when we voted to let Dr. Nelson negotiate the contract for the transformation zone. It was 3 days after I was released from the hospital with an emergency C-section that delivered my daughter, who was still in the NICU. And it was so important to me that these neighborhood schools stayed open. I kind of hobbled my way up here, sat down gingerly, and voted for the transformation zone because I knew that local accountability for our campuses was the best for our community. And so that being said, Dr. McDermott, I am so thankful because you were with Waco ISD and employed by Waco ISD, and you stepped up and decided to help lead the transformation zone. And I just wanted to say thank you because you and Malcolm Duncan really did help save our schools. And that was what the intent of the transformation zone was to save our neighborhood schools and keep local accountability. And so I think I just wanted to give honor where honor is due and let people know that this board, out of everyone sitting up here, it was actually Angela and I, the only ones who voted for the transformation zone and put that kind of in place for our community at the inception. And I think I would like to clarify that no one is against the transformation zone, that any success that the transformation zone has is a success for our entire community, just as the success of our students here in Waco ISD is a success for our community. The question that is posed before us is TEA. I'm thankful for the transformation zone and the time that they're volunteering, but their board is not an elected position and is not accountable for the test scores in terms of they cannot be voted out, and TEA will not replace their board with a board of managers. They will replace us. So it would be like, I'm a teacher, I was a former teacher, but it would be like me handing over my class to someone, and yet the accountability falls on me. So I think I would love for the adults in our community to please put aside what feels like at times divisive, polarizing narratives and really come together and really see a partnership, because I feel like I don't follow social media closely. I don't want to. But I do think there is some narrative out there that is very polarizing and pits one entity against another. And in order for us to move forward, we have to move forward in partnership because this is our entire community. And there is an accountability that I have not only federally, not only by the state, not only by my constituents who voted me in, but my neighbors who send their kids into Waco ISD, and my own daughter who goes to Waco ISD. So there's multiple levels of accountability for me, and when I look at the proposed amendment within our packet, what I see is just a layer of accountability that is proposed, because the buck stops with us, and to kind of hand over that and technically get 1-2 years. I am not negating any of the great work that the Transformation Zone has done. But I also think that if a school is in trouble, the onus is on us. And this amendment, as presented, gives us the flexibility to ensure a high level of accountability.
Madam President, can I say something?
I do want to add also, for sake of clarification, that at our meeting last month, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. DeBeer, to compare the amendment that was presented to the board last March and then the amendment that's been presented tonight in just a moment. But I think for sake of clarity, the amendment last month was on the board's agenda for approval. And there wasn't a motion from any member of this board to approve that amendment that night. But rather, the board gave direction to the superintendent to contact Dr. McDurham to talk about some of the concerns that the board had about that amendment. And Ms. Cordowig has mentioned some of her concerns tonight, but Mr. Davis wasn't here last month. But I think that I can say that every member of the board had some concerns, and asked Dr. Kincannon to contact Dr. McDurham to negotiate, to work through some of those concerns. She did that on behalf of the board. That's the role of the superintendent. She worked with Dr. McDurham. Dr. McDurham and Dr. Kincannon agreed to the amendment that is in the packet tonight. And that is what is being presented to the board, is the amendment that the chief executive director and the superintendent of both of these entities worked out through conversation and negotiation. So there's been a lot of misinformation about, and I think that's what Ms. Cordowig was addressing, that somehow there's a narrative that this board does not support Transformation Waco. And it's disheartening and troubling. I don't know why that is. They're just stories created for some reason I'm not aware and do not understand. But I do know that this board has been working on and considering what we needed to do to meet TEA's demands, because we were all happy with the contract we had. All of us are happy with the contract we had, except TEA. And TEA has forced us in this position. So I think for clarity's sake, the fact that now there is a motion on the table to consider an amendment that was in front of the board last month that no one made a motion to approve. The board asked the superintendent to negotiate, and now the superintendent has come back with an amendment that the executive director of Transformation Waco agreed to. I would like, for sake of clarification, what is the difference between the two amendments? Because the amendment that's being proposed is on the table right now, we don't have. Mr. DeBeer.
Would it be helpful to have hard copies of the amendment as well?
It would, thank you.
And it was in our board packet. Thank you, Kyle, for sending us all the different versions of the contract.
Both the amendment that was in the packet last month and the amendment that is in the packet this month have an end date of June 15th of 2024 and remove the automatic renewal clause that TEA has said is insufficient to sustain eligibility for Senate Bill 1882 benefits. The amendment that was in the packet last month created a new probationary period for campuses that receive a DRF for 2 consecutive years. That probationary period has not been included in the amendment that is in the packet this month. Both the underlying existing contract that would continue in place if the boards were not to take any action, and both amendments include an option for Waco ISD's board to unilaterally remove campuses from the partnership if they receive a DRF for 3 consecutive years. There is a difference between the 2 amendments in the timing when that option can be exercised. The amendment proposed last month tracks the current language of the contract in requiring that notice of unilaterally removing a school that receives a DRF for 3 consecutive years be given at least 180 days prior to the end of the school year, and that removal take place at the end of the school year. The amendment that's in the packet this month allows for that removal to take place at a time determined by the Waco ISD board with 45 days notice. In part, this reflects a disconnect between the contract periods and the timeline for the state's accountability system. The contract period resets essentially on June 15th of each year and looks at a school year ending at the end of May, beginning of June. Accountability ratings aren't released until August. So the effect is you could have an accountability rating in August that constituted the 3rd consecutive year under the amendment that was of a DRF rating. Under the amendment that was in the packet last month, the board would only be able to remove that campus at the end of that current school year that's just getting underway. With the amendment that's in the packet this month, the board could, with 45 days notice, remove that campus that has had 3 consecutive DRF ratings sooner to intervene during that school year. In either case, that option to unilaterally remove a campus from the partnership that has received a DRF rating for 3 years is just that. It's not something that happens automatically. It's an option that's available to the board and would require board action to proceed. Then the other difference is in the discussion of how consecutive years are calculated. In the amendment that's in the packet this month, it uses kind of the example we went through a moment ago of what happens this year if a school is considered not rated, as opposed to referencing the accountability handbook. So in calculating consecutive years, a campus that received an F in 2019 was not rated in 2022 and received a D or an F in 2023 would be deemed to have had 3 consecutive years of DRF ratings.
Are you going to ask a question?
So with that would then therefore only leave us 2 years in order to turn around that campus to the C, to making a C before TEA imposes action. Is that correct?
Yes, on that timeline, yes.
Okay, can I ask a
Yes,
question?
Mr. Davis.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify a couple things too. We did not give our schools to Transformation Waco as a just because we were struggling. So the board who voted Transformation Waco in, it was because we had no other option, and I'm thankful for that. But I think the thing that we're remiss, we're not talking about the additional funding that the zones brings and the additional resources that it brings to our students. And I don't understand why we're not talking about that. I understand that we feel like the need of the zone in part originally was to save the schools, but it was also to bring $1.8 million in additional funding to our most at-risk students. And I don't see that need going anywhere anytime soon. So I would just want to know what would be the purpose of us not having any kind of renewal set in the contract I also want to point out, thank Dr. Kincannon again. I lost my niece last month, so that's why I wasn't at the board meeting, or I would have made the motion to approve the contract that was on the agenda. But I think the 45 days is not long enough. If we look at it from a district standpoint, the zone is grossly overstaffed, meaning that there are staff members that will not have a job to go to if we do not longer have campuses on the zone, because we just don't have the positions that they do. So I would want to know what happens to the resources for after-school funding, what happens to our eyeglass clinics, what happens to all the additional resources that we're currently getting from the zone. And from what I've heard earlier in this meeting, we're already having financial issues. So I don't understand us being okay with taking much needed funds from our students. And I've had the pleasure of working in Waco ISD schools and Transformation Waco schools. So I've seen the difference and I've seen the impact those resources have on our students and our families, from family support specialists who connect the families and the schools and the community together, to our social workers who are literally on campus helping our kids with their social emotional behaviors and their problems. So I think if we don't, as a board, have a plan on continuing these resources that are critical to our students and our community, I think that we shouldn't be in a position to where we could potentially lose the partnership with the zone. The reason why I second last month's amendment to the contract is because I think that the 180 days would suffice as enough time. If we made that decision, it would give our employees enough time to react. It would give the zone enough time to react. It would help us to make the smoothest transition for some of the most traumatized kids that we have in the district, that have been through not only losing a principal, going through COVID, schools burning down, being displaced, members of their school that they lean on disappearing. They've already been through a lot. So to me, hearing that it's a possibility that we might be losing these critical resources in our district, I'm not okay with it. So to me, I think we need to extend the contract to 2 years. We need to keep the 100. I have faith that the zone will be able to produce based on the history of the zone and the schools that they have been able to remove from the list. So, and I think like our trustees are saying, I hope we're all hearing what I'm saying because I'm talking to the group. But we're saying that we're all in favor of the zone. We know the resources that come with the zone. We understand the partnership. So I think our position is, let's do what's best for our kids. Let's get our kids what they need. That was part of the reason Dr. Nelson started the zone. It was to get that additional funding for our students as well. So that's a part of it that we're not talking about. And I don't understand how we would replace those things if we lose the zone at any point.
Ms. Cordaway.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for your comments. I think that they're valid, and they're questions that I had asked Mr. DeBeer. I said, Mr. DeBeer, if there was any way that we could look at the services that are being provided in the transformation zone so that we have kind of this list of services so that we ensure that if that probationary clause is in there, that we understand exactly what services are being provided specifically by the transformation zone and are unique, that the transformation zone itself. Is that something that we can partner with the transformation zone and find out, or?
Absolutely. Board policy requires the board to undertake an annual evaluation of each of the campuses operated by Transformation Waco. Typically, that has happened somewhere in the fall, usually October or November, and as part of that process, we could certainly work with Transformation Waco to compile that list.
I would just like to say we could also just go to a Transformation Waco school, and they will tell you the resources that they are providing. It's not something that you have to dig prior to find. It's open. And I feel like if we're making decisions on whether to keep a contract with the zone and we're not informed on the resources that are provided by the zone, I think that means we're making uninformed decisions. So I think that is great. I would love to have that report, but I think in the meantime, just going to a school or reaching out to a representative from the zone, they can bring you up to speed on what additional resources they have.
Madam President.
Ms. Corwin?
Thank you so much again, Trustee Davis, for your comments. I actually did that. I went to the transformation zones to go do visit. Dr. McDurham was kind enough to escort me through the campuses. I am fairly aware of the services that are provided, some of the services. I know that they've changed. COVID has made everyone pivot, so I didn't want to assume. I have spoken with staff from the transformation zone who've called me, I have spoken with teachers from the transformation zone who have spoken to me. I also, because, again, a win for kids in this community is a win for everyone. I am not saying Waco ISD is perfect, but I am saying there's a level of accountability as an elected official in this district that we have over Waco ISD campuses. There are a lot of good things also that are happening in Waco ISD. So I think that there are great things happening in the transformation zone. This narrative of pitting one entity against the other is not helpful. It is divisive. It causes a fight or flight or freeze mentality instead of prefrontal cortex thinking, critical and engaging in that critical thinking. I think as adults, we need to model for our students that thought process. And I think that I am not saying that, again, in contrary to Mr. Davis, I'm just saying in general what I'm hearing. I think that this is, again, I walked into Brook Avenue and I saw Gwen James working with the Brook Avenue Pre-K, who is an administrator for Waco ISD. So there's a lot of overlap here. There's a lot of services that are overlapped. The Rappaport Vision was graciously donated by Rappaport Foundation and was meant to be for all of Waco ISD. So there's a lot of overlap that I think is sometimes a little bit difficult to separate. The family support specialist actually were there before. Some of them were there before the zone was created, but they had a different job title. So
I'm sorry, they weren't. I'm sorry, they weren't in the zone. They weren't there. Family support specialists were not in our at the middle school level.
Mr. Davis, I know that you don't believe me, but I can name them, and I think Dr. McDurham could probably tell you the social workers that have been on campus, and
Social workers and family support specialists are two different positions.
The family.
Excuse me, I'm not going to allow trustees to interrupt each other. So you need to respect each other's time. Ms. Quarterwig.
I'm sorry. I think I understand what you're trying to say in that the social workers weren't called family support specialists before the zone, but those same social workers continue to be on those campuses. Their title has changed.
Mr. DeBeer, can you explain the biggest, what is the significant difference between the amendment that Transformation Zone proposed in March and the amendment that Dr. Kincannon and Dr. McDurham agreed upon and presented to the board tonight?
I think at a really high level, it gives this board the flexibility or the option to intervene a year earlier if a campus receives 3 consecutive DRF ratings.
Okay, thank you. The metrics that the zone proposed haven't changed. They're still the
Correct.
same. The extension to 2024 is exactly the same, correct?
Correct.
The biggest difference is giving the board the flexibility to make the decision. The board doesn't have to. The board could choose not to exercise the right underneath in this amendment that's being proposed tonight if it didn't want to, but it would have the option. And I know that was a concern that several of the board members expressed last month, that we wouldn't have an option, and the clock, and time passes quickly. And the needs are great, and we are not, we do not know that the legislature will give us another chance if we miss again 5 years. So I appreciate that. Is there anybody else have another question about the amendment that's in the consent, and then the amendment that's been, that's the subject of the motion? Yes, sir, Mr. Guillory.
So I'm looking at transformation at 4 of the 5 schools, meeting standard when they came about. With the amendment that we have on the table right now, it seems that it doesn't allow them to come out of the pandemic in the way that we've asked, or this board is allowing our administration to come out of the pandemic. That's what I have a problem with. I have a problem with the double standard there, where we're asking for grace coming out of the pandemic, but we're not exercising the same amount of grace to transformation to come out of the pandemic. They have proven that they can bring schools up to meet standard. We have yet to bring about the data or do that. We had to give over our 5 schools for a reason, and they have shown that they have the ability to do that. And I want to give them that same opportunity now to get those schools back to where they need to be. I have a tremendous amount of faith in Dr. McDermott and her board, even though they're not elected. They have some amazing members over there, and I believe that they can do it. They've done it before. I believe they can do it again, and I want to give them that opportunity to do it.
Madam President, I would just...
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I would just like to say too, we've had several comments about a narrative. The only narrative I'm pushing is fighting for resources for our students. So I don't want anybody to think that anything I'm saying today was to divide the board, but it was to make sure that our students are receiving what they need. When we're talking about performance in the zone versus Waco ISD, we mentioned that 2 schools dropped down from the zone for an F. At the same time, 5 Waco ISD schools also dropped to an F. So that is the problem that I'm having, kind of the double standard that Mr. Guillory spoke of. I just feel like I understand that we want the best for our kids. We want them to achieve highly. I just think that maybe if I can get a timeline, or maybe, because when we talked about our district, I asked for, hey, is it a 2-year recovery? Is it a 3-year recovery? Is it a 5-year recovery? And we said, let's just see how it goes because of the pandemic. So how can we then come back and say, oh, if you don't do it after the next year, we're out. So I think as a board, we have to extend the same grace, especially when the zone has been able to prove that they can remove schools off their list. So that's my biggest concern in the 180 days versus the 45. I think we need to allow their teams and their staff to readjust longer than 45 days.
For sake of clarification, the board has never not considered amending the contract in order to continue the resources for Transformation Waco. That has never been on the table. That's never been part of the consideration, and neither one of these amendments affects, or if we don't pass an amendment because we don't comply with TEA's demands, the money for the year will not be provided. But that has never been considered. At this point, what we're considering is, does the board want the option to be able to take schools that are struggling back in sooner? At this point, is there any other discussion, or do we want to call a question?
Yes, I want to clarify one more thing. The reason why I'm saying we're pulling funding, if the schools doesn't meet standard and we pull a school, they get less funding. They won't have as many schools, so they won't get the full 1 point. So if we pull 2 schools from the zone, we will be essentially pulling funding. So that's why I'm not saying that the board is, we have an agenda item to pull funding. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying by pulling those schools back into Waco ISD, we would essentially lose funding. Well, the zone would lose funding. That was the point.
Right, and for sake of clarification, that this contract amendment wouldn't require that. It would be up to the board at that point to make a decision. Okay, just making sure that's clear. Yes, Ms. Cordway.
Just clarifying question, Kyle. Sorry, so you had skimmed through, you said 2018, when we created the transformation zone, we handed over 4 schools that actually were already passing, and 1 school that, can you explain that to me again, kind of what that was?
Sure. So really, if you go back to the 2017 accountability ratings, at that point, all 5 schools were rated improvement required was the label at the time, but failed to meet state standard. The following year in 2017-18, that's when the partnership was created. Initially with Prosper Waco. Prosper Waco on paper only operated the 5 campuses for the last day of the 2017-18 school year. Then over the course of the summer, the contract was assigned to Transformation Waco, and Transformation Waco operated the schools for a portion of the end of the summer school session. The accountability ratings that were released in August of 2018, based on that full 2017-18 school year, were the ratings where 4 of the 5 campuses then met state standard, Brook Avenue, the 5th being the one that didn't. The following year, 18-19, then Brook Avenue received a C, so it met state standard, but unfortunately, J.H. Hines and G.W. Carver slipped back a bit.
Thank you for that clarification. Again, so those campuses were taught curriculum, everything was pretty much implemented by Waco ISD when they received their passing rating in 2018. And, okay, thank you. That is helpful.
I got another clarification. Were you the superintendent at that time? So right now, our current administration, we don't have anything to go back on that shows a turnaround school in our district. The zone, you just said, turned around Brook Avenue. So at least they can say, hey, we did it before the pandemic. And that's the issue that I'm having. Because we could pull the schools back to Waco ISD, that doesn't mean they're gonna be a B. So I think from right now where we're standing with that data, I think it's just hard to make that decision without the data. I don't see how we're going to make a decision to do this again, because we'll be pulling funding from kids, and I don't understand the logic of it. I hope we extend the contract that was presented at last month's meeting.
All right, ready to vote? So the motion and second on the floor is to approve the amendment that was presented by Transformation Zone at our March board meeting. Monica, will you poll the board, starting with Mr. Guillory?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 3-2. Let's see. Number 9, review and discuss teacher incentive allotment update. Dr. Gutierrez. Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about the teacher incentive allotment this evening, and our director, Amy Taylor, will be joining me here shortly. Again, it's just an update, and you've seen some of this before, so just very briefly, the TIA is really a recruitment and a retention strategy that we plan to use. We started planning for it 2.5 years ago, and we are now in full implementation. And it's also to reward excuse me, and now we're rewarding highly effective teachers. And these aren't just highly effective teachers in the school district, these are the most highly effective teachers in the state of Texas. And the way that this is decided is through 3 measures. One of them is their performance through their teacher evaluation, which is T-test. The other is student growth. And so they have to prove that they can grow students in their classroom. And also their leadership practices. These are the things they do as teacher leaders, because we believe that everyone is a leader on the campus, and especially teachers. And why we do this is really to remain competitive. As you know, we're in some of the toughest times when it comes to being competitive with teacher pay, and we believe that this is one strategy that helps us maintain that competitiveness. And it's also, and this one, the last one is really near and dear to my heart, was equity of access to the most effective teachers. This is the concept where the designated teachers who are working in some of our highest need schools are going to get paid more than teachers who work in schools that aren't as high needs. So if a teacher wants to go down the road to a school that has less needs, their pay is going to be different, and this is designated teachers. So I think that's really important. We're currently in phase 2, but if you recall, for some of you who were on the board when we first presented this, in phase 1, we started doing a slow implementation because this is very complex work. And with phase 1, we only included the reading and math teachers, but we included the teachers from pre-K through 12th grade. But we're currently implementing phase 2, so now we're integrating quite a few teachers this school year. So the 47 teachers you saw today were only reading and math teachers. But next year, we're going to be really excited to hopefully bring you double the number that we had today, because now we're including not only reading and math, but we're implementing the TIA with social studies and science teachers, and some special ed teachers, and some of our instructional, supplemental instructional teachers. And next year's, we've done lots of work. Amy and stakeholders have done tons of work to take this to phase 3. So this year we designed phase 3, and this is to include every teacher in the system, because we really believe that every teacher should be considered for this money. And I will tell you, not many districts are integrating every teacher. It's very complex to figure out how to do this with every teacher, but we've jumped in, and we're going to give it a shot because we believe that every teacher should be a part of this in Waco ISD. And I can tell you, we get lots of questions and lots of calls on how we're going to do this with every teacher. But the design is set, and we're just waiting for approval from TEA. So just a few proof points of excellence. You saw today we had 47 teachers get designated. Some of these teachers that you met tonight, next school year, some of them are going to make 80s in the 80s and 90s. We didn't quite hit that 6-figure, but we're getting close, and I'm hoping next year we're going to have some 6-figure teachers. And so super excited about that, but I would say teachers making 80s and 90s is a big deal. It's a huge deal. And I've told all those teachers, I said, you can't put a price tag on an excellent teacher. So wish we could give them a lot more, but we do know that we're headed in the right direction with that. Also, over a 5-year period, so every year these teachers are bringing in about $515,000, and this is money that goes back into their pocket. 90% of it will go back into teachers' pockets. And so that's going to be anywhere from $2.5 to $2.7 million over the 5 years. And I say an estimate because every year the number could be a little higher or a little lower based on our economics, our SES in our classrooms. At each school. Also, because we personally talked to each of these teachers, most of them plan to stay. In fact, they're supposed to personally call me if they even think about leaving. So I can tell you one is relocating, but 46 of them right now plan to stay, And even a bigger deal is some of them have said, I'm not going to retire this year, or I'm not retiring this year or next year. Like, because this goes back in, this is TRS eligible, so this will have a lifetime impact for them because it'll go into their retirement. Yeah, so it's a big deal for them. And also, we are the only non-rural district in the surrounding area and in our region to have a TIA application approved at this time and actually pass data validation. And so one of the things that's really complex about this is that just because TIA says your model is approved, it doesn't mean that when you submit your data that you actually get validated. It goes through like 11 data validation checks at Texas Tech. And I can tell you there are many districts in the state that did not get validated, and it's a learning process. But I am so glad that I don't have to stand before you and tell you that we didn't get validated. We got validated, and we're excited because if we hadn't gotten validated, you would not have been meeting these 47 teachers today. And they would not be getting money in August. So really excited about that, and we think that makes us super competitive in our region. And last but not least, and this is a testament to a lot of the work that Amy Taylor is doing and the work that we've done with our stakeholders. We are now really an exemplar in the state. TEA has asked for many things that we've done, like scorecards, how we're doing data validation, how we're engaging stakeholders. We've been asked to sit on panels. I've been asked to be a part of the effective districts framework that the state is now going to be rolling out. So do know that Waco's getting noticed for this work, and I think it's real important because the perception that people have about our district could have an impact on whether when parents are choosing schools, when teachers are choosing places to work. So those are just a few proof points of excellence, but really proud of all of that.
Dr. Gutierrez, could you talk about how much money total those 47 teachers will get?
Yes. So they're going to receive, right now the amount is $515,000 that will roll out this year. And the teachers, I was just looking at the amounts, they range anywhere from, the allotments range anywhere from right under $7,000 to almost $29,000. So they'll get 75% of that, of their allotment, and then 15% will go back to other high-performing teachers that weren't quite yet eligible because they are part of Phase 2 or Phase 3. So there's going to be more teachers who are going to get money that were not recognized today.
And they don't just get it for 1 year, they get it for 5 years.
5 years. And that's where that 2.5 to 2.7 million that will come into this school district for teacher pay. Yeah.
Can I say thank you so much for the 5-year agreement that the teachers made to stay in the district? I thought this was an awesome thing when you first presented it, but I was worried about the teachers leaving once they got the certification. So the fact that they agreed to stay in the district for 5 years will really help, hopefully, with retention and recruitment, because teachers will want to come here. Teachers come here, so you can get that certification.
Yeah,
So I'm
I don't
happy about
I don't think they agreed to stay 5 years. They
Excuse me.
she just said, please stay, and they said, we will. And if,
Okay.
so.
Okay, I thought earlier when I asked, you said they had agreed to stay.
That was with the masters in the ABA.
Got you.
Yeah.
Take that back. No, I'm just playing. It was great. It's still a great thing. I'm just playing. It's a great thing, and
we
we're
ought to
happy
get
for our
them to
teachers.
sign 5 years. We should, but we won't.
But they did agree to stay, so I'm asking them to commit again for next year, and several of them said retirement was in the near future. One even said, I was retiring this year with my husband, and I'm not going to retire anymore. So yes, we do have teachers saying that they're going to stay because of this. And these are some of our best teachers, so those are the ones we really want to stay too. So, and we individually met with these teachers in groups by each campus. There are 11 campuses where we have designated teachers, and I can tell you that these teachers are some of the most humble, they're just beautiful people, and at times we tell them what was we'd tell them that they were designated, we'd show them the amounts, and they'd just be quiet. They wouldn't say a word. And I was like, are y'all okay? And they're like, we're just speechless. Like, they're just so humble and happy, and they say, I do this because I love it. And so I can tell you, they really reignited me just talking to them and being around them. But a few things that they said, one teacher said, this is life-changing for me and my family. I feel valued as an educator for the work that I do. Someone else, the lady I just told you about, the teacher that said, after receiving these funds, I've decided to delay my retirement plans and stay in the classroom, the place that I love. Her husband retired. They agreed. This one was a beautiful story. Her and her husband had agreed to retire the same year, and now she's not retiring. So that's just awesome. And then And another one, some of them are putting kids to college. This teacher said, I'm using the stipend to put a down payment on my first house. This money is going to be meaningful to them, from buying houses to paying for kids' college and just helping them do the things that we have to do as we raise families. But I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Amy Taylor to tell you a little bit about our stakeholder engagement and our plans for Phase 3.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez, and thank you, Dr. Kincannon, for your support of the TIA program, and to our Board of Trustees. I would like to personally thank our school principals for being engaged in this process. I also want to thank our teachers and the Curriculum and Instruction Department, who's been such a vital role in developing assessments and an assessment strategy. I also work very closely with the Human Resources Department, the Finance Department, and Technology. All of these departments work together to do the data collection, to build out the pre and the post tests. This is not an easy program to implement. It really does take the district as a whole. We've had some stakeholder engagement over the past year, which includes 21 teachers, one from each of our campuses. And we've also had a subcommittee of 23 different representatives from both campuses and the district who have knowledge in career and technology education, fine arts, PE, our languages other than English. We've had core academic areas participate. We've had representation from special education, emerging bilingual, and our special campuses such as Brazos, Challenge, and Wiley. And then in addition to that, we've had input from our QDAC. I see our teacher association groups over here, and they've given us feedback and listened to our phases of implementation. They've been very supportive. We have a great partnership now with TEA, and we have teacher focus groups, as well as we administer an annual survey to our teachers, HR, and our campus principals. And we use that feedback to continuously improve. Oh, I need to click the next slide. I'm like, next slide. Okay. So as we build out Phase 3, which will start next school year, we submitted on April 15th our Phase 3 expansion application. We don't know if it's approved yet, but I wanted to give you an overview of what that expansion included. So as Dr. Gutierrez shared, in our Phase 3, our goal is for all teachers and all subjects to be eligible. So what we did is we increased our teacher categories in Phase 3 from 8 teacher categories to 20. And the additions include career and technology, emerging bilingual, special ed functional academics, Brazos small group instruction teachers, PE, fine arts, and our languages other than English. We modified 4 teacher categories to be more inclusive, and that included our special ed early childhood teachers, resource teachers in the special ed department, our deaf education teachers, our visually impaired. We also added advanced placement math teachers and English, and we expanded math and science courses. We added district-created and third-party assessments to include all teachers for all subjects, and we adjusted the spending plan to move from that 75-15-10 to a 90-10, so that our our teachers who designate get 90% of the funds instead of 75. So I wanted to give you an update on the timeline and just the work we've been involved with. In the fall, we distributed teacher scorecards. We submitted data to Texas Tech, and we did validate. We implemented phase 2, and then we have been planning for phase 3 application. This spring, again, you've heard the excitement tonight, that we designated 47 teachers. We submitted a phase 3 application. We are planning in May to administer our annual survey to teachers, campus administrators, and HR staff. We've been marketing the TIA program with the communications department and recruiting teachers through job fairs, through our website, just trying to get the word out there. And then this summer, we are developing our phase 3 assessments. So we have an assessment plan in the C&I department. We are analyzing the data from this school year, collecting all the data so that we can create those scorecards again in August for the teachers and submit data yet again in October. We are planning to communicate our phase 3. I will be visiting every campus in August like I did this past year and visiting with the teachers about what this program means to them. And then we will be training our teachers and, of course, in August, giving them payouts. So are there any questions?
Any questions?
Yes. You said recruiting. What does that look like, and where are y'all going to recruit?
To recruit? Well, mainly we've updated our website to get the word out there. The communications department is using things like Twitter, and we're doing a prize patrol next week to some of our campuses. We're hoping some board members can come. And then Saturday before last, or a couple Saturdays ago, we went to a job fair, and the TIA had a table. We've created a flyer that when the HR department goes to other job fairs, they can take that. And at the job fair that Saturday, we had multiple teachers come up and ask questions about TIA, and we're just really trying to get the word out. When the designated teachers were in the room before they came out to shake your hands, I said, you are the example, so get out there and spread the word and let people know what this means to you.
Okay.
Other questions?
You guys are busy, and I'm so thankful for the work that you're doing, Mrs. Taylor and Dr. Gutierrez. It is good work, and that kind of money for teachers goes a really long way. And once those teachers get that money, that's enough buzz that will be created on those campuses. So thank you. Okay. We'll move on to item 10, consider and discuss and take appropriate action regarding the schematic design for Tennyson Middle School. Ms. Ferreira and Jared is not here. Doug Dawson was here. Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Kincannon. Since the award of their contract in March, O'Connell Robertson has been working on adapting the new middle school plan to fit the Tennyson site. You may recall in your last meeting approving the competitive sealed proposal delivery method for this project. In order to enable us to build the school under one general contractor and to expedite the process, the district is creating temporary classrooms at Tennyson that will be operational for this August. Doug Dawson is going to share the schematic design with you, so you can also, and you will also see the location of the temporary classrooms and the construction phasing plan, so you understand how this will be impacting the school in the fall. The schematic design for Tennyson is within the allowable construction cost, and we'll validate this again when we bring it back to you at design development. So, take it away, Doug.
Good evening. And so we're really excited to be up here again talking about another project for Waco ISD. But before we step into it, I just want to say thank you again to Gloria and her team. The past couple of days, we had 2 wonderful full days of partnering with her team, our construction managers on both the Carver and the Waco High School projects, as well as members of our design team. Really collaborative experience in getting to work together and build some great relationships and strategies for as we move into construction on those 2. So just wanted to say thank you. And as well.
Thanks for bringing that up, Doug. Do you want to explain a little bit more about what the goals of the partnering activity were?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we met on Tuesday and Wednesday for the Carver Middle School and the Waco High School projects, and we had representatives from the design team, architecture, all the way through structural engineers and civil engineers, and we had members from the construction manager teams as well. And we really we got to know each other on a more personal level, understand the way that we as individuals work with one another. Waco High School is going to be 3.5 years of construction, so it becomes really important to know at a deeper level the people that you're working with. And so that was a really big component of it, and then really to develop strategies for how to address construction issues as or if they arise. Things like existing conditions or change in scope. We were able to have a great discussion on strategies and come together on potential solutions and opportunities now, so that we have a path to move forward when those arise, and we're coming at it as one team in the future. So it was great, and thank you again, Dr. Kincannon, for that opportunity as well.
It's great.
It
Sat in
was
the
a lot
room
of
with a
fun.
lot of smart people.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, just
Really
wanted to
smart
say
people.
that. So with Tennyson, we had the user group meetings and all of the different methods of input from middle school staff, including the principal, Matt Rambo, and Dr. Carrier for both projects. So if you remember in our original discussion with the GW Carver, the middle school design was actually as a prototype for both campuses. And so as you go through the schematic design presentation here, you're going to see a lot of similarities between the two, and that's very intentional. And so looking at the site plan, on the left of the screen, you'll see it says Tennyson Drive. So Tennyson actually runs a little bit more east-west, but we've kind of turned it to make it a little more clear. So right now, the existing school's main entry is off of Tennyson Drive. If you look at the site plan here, the new middle school's entry will now face Sanger. So we're flipping the location of the main entry, and I'll speak to as to why here in a little bit. But if you look at the top, so North 60th Street, there's a little blue arrow where your entry drive comes in. That's going to be the new parent drop-off and visitor access loop. And so we have a nice big long queuing area there, as well as the opportunity for some additional exiting out of the site there on the south onto 62nd, as well as onto Sanger. And then on the left side of the site, you'll see we have a dedicated bus loop as well as some additional parking. So we're splitting the parking out, providing staff and visitors opportunities across the site for parking, direct or dedicated access for buses, so we can kind of keep those traffic flows from mixing. And then you'll see the lane that cuts through the middle of the site there. That's going to be both for fire access as well as offer the district the flexibility to use that as a potential bus loop in the future. So it really just gives a better flexible design there. So when we look at the floor plan, the bottom left image there is actually GW Carver. So you'll be a little more familiar with that one. Rotated 180 degrees and you get Tennyson is basically how we look at it, with a couple key differences. So the classroom wings stay the same, the exact same design and layout. So we have got, again, we developed that program for both campuses. But you'll see the difference with the main entry there, where the red arrow is. Your administration suite is now across from your gyms. So on the previous plan, your administration suite was across from your library, and we flip-flopped those as a result of the site constraints for Tennyson. Tennyson is a much narrower site than Carver. But other than that, it's the same program, same square footage, and the same overall design, so we're including all the same components on both campuses. And then the fun part, we have a great video and some renderings here of the exterior design, and so you'll see a lot of similarities, but as well as some unique architectural differences that we've been able to implement to really give Tennyson its own unique identity. And so this view is as if you are driving down North 60th Street from Tennyson heading towards Sanger. So this is your classroom wing, your two-story volume here that is along North 60th Street. And as we come around the east side of the building, you'll see the new parent drop-off loop. And so that's got a nice, big, dedicated drop-off area where the new main entry will open up to. And then you see to the left of that main entry, that larger volume, that's going to be your competition and your auxiliary gyms. So we've got a really nice architectural presence towards the front, and a lot of opportunity for queuing and parent drop-off and pickup, staging of students as they're being picked up and waiting to be picked up. And then, of course, integrating some good, architectural features to really give that entry the identity it deserves. So again, this faces Sanger, whereas your current facility faces Tennyson Drive.
It's a really tricky site, especially trying to rebuild the school while you're having school. So kudos to the O'Connell Robertson team for walking us through all of those options and helping us think about how to orient that campus on that piece of property. You also have the property lines, I forgot which street those sit on, but those big power lines that run through there.
We do.
Created an extra challenge on this site, and we feel really good about where we landed on this.
Yeah, the electrical easement is about a little over, I think it's over 100 feet wide, so it takes up a pretty large chunk of the site there, and
Pretty tricky.
is pretty tricky. And so when we talk about schedule, Gloria mentioned some temporary facilities to support the students in some of the areas that will be temporarily displaced to support the new building's construction. And so this summer, you'll see additional temporary facilities, portable buildings on site to house some of those displaced classrooms. And then we'll be demolishing one wing of the building, the one-story 300 wing. Will get demolished, and that's to support building the new facility in one phase. So there was the opportunity to look at doing 2 phases that would have had a little bit of a different construction timeline, but this allows us to have all of that occur at once, which usually is faster, which usually means it's more cohesive and ultimately cheaper. So from a design standpoint, I won't go through all the dates, but as Gloria mentioned, design development will proceed here through the summer until June, and then our contract documents would be completed mid-September. The final board approval for the design would be towards the end of the year in November, and so that would allow us to begin the first phase of construction in January. And so as we talk about the overall construction schedule, January of next year through the summer of '24. Any questions on the schedule? Or anything?
Not on the
so far?
schedule. I'll let you finish.
Oh, if you can ask now.
I was just wondering, why is it, you said you kind of will go back to why the building was facing Sanger?
Mm-hmm.
Could you, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next 2 slides here will kind of explain that. And so as you can see, the existing facility, as I mentioned, it faces Tennyson. So the bulk of that existing campus is pushed towards the north, kind of northwest of the site. And so really, when you think about how to construct a facility on the campus and minimize the impact of the existing facility so that students don't have to either be displaced to another campus or just this campus be shut down completely, it really only offers that right side of the building or of the campus there for a new facility. And then that orange trapezoid shape that you see in the bottom right of the site, that's the entire electrical easement for those power lines. So it takes up quite a bit of real estate actually on the property. And so that's why we elected to flip the main entry to face Sanger, because it really finds the right balance of entry location, site access, and then also in the end result, having your drop-off, your bus loop, and your parking organized in a way that is best for the facility.
Great, thank you. Dr. Kincannon, the Safe Routes to Schools, I know is a city grant, can we make sure that, or get in dialogue with the city to make sure that we have sidewalks accessible for our students and crosswalks along some of these? I look at this and I think there's a lot of traffic on, on some of these areas, and so just as we're going forward, I would really love.
We need them anyway. There, I don't know what the city code is on that. There may be a requirement to add
For the perimeter sidewalks?
for the perimeter sidewalks. Anyway.
Yes. Yep. So for all 3 projects, actually, and so Waco High School, on the perimeter of that, we are improving the sidewalks along the roads, Carver as well, and we'll be required to do the same thing here.
Yeah, and I think ensuring that there are sidewalks into kind of the neighborhoods, making sure that kids don't have to walk on the street. So just if there could be some collaboration with the city and seeing what type of funding is available for that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Any other questions regarding the Tennyson schedule building? So other than that, We look forward to continuing the design progress here over the next several months. So we would be looking for schematic design approval this evening. And then, as I mentioned, June, you'll start to see the portables and the demolition occur on site. There will be a package that will come to you all in the summer for approval of that scope. That's going to be bid separately than the rest of the project, so it will come as its own bid package. And then we would come back in July for approval of the design development phase, and then again in November for the final CD approval.
Great. Are there any questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the schematic design for Tennyson Middle School as presented and authorize O'Connell Roberts to proceed with the design development phase.
Second.
First motion by Trustee Guillory and seconded by Trustee Davis. Okay, on to item 11. Consider and discuss and take thank you so much, Doug. Sorry about that.
Great job.
Yep. Consider and discuss and take. Oh, did not vote. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Barrera. Yeah, guaranteed maximum price. Tell us all about it.
Good evening again. In February, the board approved the guaranteed maximum price for number 1 for Carver Middle School. Since then, core construction has been on site, the building's been demoed, they've made great progress on this first package. During this time, they were also working with O'Connell Robertson to develop the bid documents for the GMP number 2. And I want to also give them credit for their helping the district with planning our ribbon cutting for May 6th. So they're also helping us with staging the ribbon cutting for May 6th. GMP number 2 includes underground demolition, site utilities, which include electrical, plumbing, drainage structures, paving, and the new track. As part of CORE's bidding process, an on-site pre-proposal meeting was held on March 24th. This allowed local people to be able to come to the site, meet with CORE, see the site, and be able to be aware of the project and see if they wanted to participate. Proposals were received on March 31st. They were reviewed and evaluated by CORE, by O'Connell Robertson, and by the district administration. The total for GMP number 2 is $6,674,361, and this amount is within the budget for this scope of work. So, as you know, we're in very challenging times with the construction market right now, and we're monitoring each of these interim GMPs with the estimate the construction manager at risk has submitted, so that we're staying within each of the GMPs as we go. In each of these, we also have contingency included for escalation, and when that is not used in that GMP, it becomes available to use in a subsequent GMP, okay? So we set it aside in case we need it, but if we don't use it, we save it for the next one. And I also wanted to make you aware that in this GMP number 2, there is $2.3 million in local contractor participation, which is almost 40%. So that's a really good number. We're very happy to see that. And GMP number 3 is being priced right now, and we expect to bring it to the board for approval in June. So.
Okay, any questions?
Just thank y'all for working so hard. We appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
We do have representatives.
Yes, of course. Steve Butler, he is here with Core Construction.
I want to say how significant it is to be within budget. And we thank you, Gloria and Steve and Core, for that. We're watching closely as school districts across the state are getting bids on projects and noting that they are not within budget. There are many that are not. So we're thankful that we have a really strong team working together, breaking this into pieces and moving forward and staying within budget was one of the goals we established last 2 days too, right? Stay in budget and stay on time. That's right. So y'all are doing a great job so far.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to approve GMP number 2 for GW Carver Middle School Authorize the superintendent to sign Amendment 2 with CORE and execute the notice to proceed on the scope of work with GMP number 2.
Okay, it was first by Trustee Guillory, seconded by Mr. Vidania. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, announcements. Mr. DeBeer.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Early voting for the May 7th trustee election is underway right now. Early voting sites are open from 8 to 5 tomorrow, 7 to 7 on Saturday, and from 7 to 7 on Monday and Tuesday. There are contested races to represent District 4 in Waco ISD for a full 3-year term and to fill the remaining year of the unexpired term in the at-large position. Also underway at this time is the district's incredible student art show, and we want to thank the Art Center of Waco for hosting that for us. That's helped to create a really special experience for our kids. That's open tomorrow from 11 to 5 and also on Saturday from 10 to 2 at the Art Center. As Ms. Barrera mentioned, next week we have our groundbreaking for Carver on Friday at 9 a.m. And then, of course, the following day on Saturday is Election Day and the trustee election, and polling places will be open from 7 to 7 on May 7th. Voters anywhere in Waco ISD can use any polling place in the county, and that includes our 4 campuses that will be serving as polling places on Election Day: Waco High School, University High School, Cesar Chavez Middle, and Tennyson Middle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lots of good work happening in the district. Thank you so much for your time. We are adjourned.